Oh god. SMG4 Generous Arc with Feel. That all got me almost darker than an anime arc. I'm not kidding. This is gonna be a 20 almost minute one. Oh boy.
Officially coming. So with the SMG4 cosmology lore officially coming to an end, I think it's best that we take a look back on the Genesis arc as a whole and review its writing and how the arc was presented. I recently reviewed the Revelations arc, so naturally it makes sense for me to do the Genesis arc as well. Then I guess we'll go back and review the Waluigi arc and every other arc after this review, but let's just focus on the Genesis arc first. For this review though, I'm only going to be taking the Genesis arc into consideration here. The Revelations arc and the YouTube arc are not going to influence any of my criticisms or change my opinion on this arc as a whole. But anyway, welcome to my Genesis arc review. Make sure to like and subscribe.
Let's listen.
First off, before we get into anything as to what the arc gave us, I wanted to say that this arc was extremely disjointed. Considering most people consider what's in the arc playlist as
it really got really dark within the
anime
arc one.
From the playlist that seemed like they belong there. And not only that, this arc is the only arc that has the most episodes in between that are not arc related. Which in retrospect isn't that great of an idea. I get it, they wanted to stretch out the arc.
Don't we know this episode? I recognize this happened almost a year.
And it with War of the Fat Italians, but arcs having episodes in between only works in arcs that are more episodic based rather than having a deep connected story. For example, an arc that would be great to have episodes in between would be in the YouTube arc. The arc is episodic enough and not as connected as the Genesis arc that it could work. But with the Genesis arc having this massively connected story with a lurking evil in the background, it makes the story feel disconnected at points, especially when there are episodes in between that seem to connect to the story, but in reality they aren't a part of the playlist, so officially they are not a part of the arc itself. This makes it really hard to appropriately review the story to its full degree, due to the separation of episodes. We knew there was an arc going on in the background here, there's no point in having episodes in between when we know there's a story to be told. And because of some episodes being in between, a lot of the non-arc related episodes don't perform as well and are often overlooked because the audience is anticipating for the next arc episode to come out. Episodes in between works for something like the YouTube arc where we didn't know we were in an arc until the last couple of episodes, but in the Genesis arc where we knew we were in an arc since the 10-year anniversary special, there's no point in having episodes in between unless you want to forcefully stretch it out to reach a certain date where you can end it in the War of the Fat Italians and start it at the 10-year anniversary. But besides that, there are still a lot of
kind of true, but
finally,
what is War of 2022? Is it going to be like something like the same thing from the last 2 years, or it's going to be a little bit different? I don't know.
Even if the story did have a few retcons in the first place. I know this is controversial, but I am personally a fan of retcons if the original story didn't initiate a good telling story or was confusing to follow, and that retcon doesn't change the entire plot of the show. I know that's a controversial thing, but I'm a fan of The Legend of Korra, so go ahead and judge me all you want, and I'm also a fan of Dragon Ball, which has had several retcons and changes to the story that I've gotten used to it.
So I guess
I make these changes because these are the shows I surround myself in. This arc was overall the arc that brought me back to SMG4. For a while there, after Meggy's Destiny, I was really growing tired of the show. I wasn't a fan of the YouTube arc and how that was written, and the episodes after were really just not doing it for me. But when we got the 10-year anniversary
special, the YouTube wasn't that bad, but I know SMG3 wouldn't know what he did.
On the SMG4 channel in this one movie
he still learned his lesson,
for me. If you didn't know, I practically grew up with this series. I started watching these videos all the way back in 99.5% Crazy. I've been here for a while. Oh my god. It was that episode that brought me into the show, and I watched consistently all the way up until today. So getting the movie with all the references made me fall into a feeling that I couldn't even describe. I got reminded of scenes that I completely forgot about. It's like loading up an old video game console, playing a game you haven't seen in years, and remembering playing it when you were a kid. That's the exact feeling that resonated in me, and it reminded me what SMG4 is truly capable of. And the dark parts after all those references also reminded me of how far this series can go and what it is capable of. I love the anime arc in its writing, and that arc showed how far the series can go. And the dark part in this movie also reminded us of that limitless potential and shattered the limits of the anime arc in terms of darkness. Even if I wasn't recording my reaction to the
You
movie,
know,
when I heard
the
the names of
middle of the
SMG 1
channel
and 2,
song
I
was
freaked out.
alright,
For
and
so
2
long,
it
every
got
fan has
really
been
dark.
speculating as to who SMG 1 and 2 could possibly be. So finally getting that
Sorry,
answer that
sis,
wasn't Super Mega Gangster
that's still
was
disturbing
endlessly
for me,
satisfying
to be
and
honest.
shocking. And having Zero put bits and pieces of what's to come in this arc inside of Mario's head also hooked me into the rest of the story.
Yeah.
And maybe anticipate what's
And that's how it happened with the backstory.
About
About what
how
happened
this
to
relates
Fred.
to SMG4's
You get that point?
past,
The
how he
Revelation
doesn't even
movie?
remember
We already
himself.
know about it now.
Unfortunately, though, it was that anticipating that was also the downfall of this arc. They showed us bits and pieces in Mario's head, and I remember constantly going back to that scene and dissecting it piece by piece to figure out exactly what could be happening in this scene. But unfortunately, half of that backstory didn't come until a year later in the Revelations movie. Yes, we got half of it in the Genesis arc, but throughout the rest of the arc, I was still anticipating Zero's backstory, waiting for it to come, but unfortunately, it never did. And it was that anticipation that made this arc feel like it was missing something. I get it, they wanted to hold it off to help bring closure to Zero's story in the later arc, but holding that backstory off once again made the arc feel like it had a hole in it. Like there was one piece of the puzzle we just weren't getting. I think Into the Dark Red was probably one of my least favorite episodes of the arc. After building so much anticipation from the 10-year anniversary special, and finally getting something close to the introduction plot, and the show finally acknowledging what was happening, but then it just turned into an episode that was just them on a blimp going to the USB. I get that this episode was supposed to be an introduction episode to the rest of the arc and building up suspense as to what was going to happen in future episodes, but the episodes beforehand already did that. You could still have Zero's eye come out of the USB at the end of the episode, but I feel like it would have been more exciting if they went through the entirety of the Dark Red and went to different locations of the Dark Red to look for the USB, rather than them just riding on a blimp and waiting for Melanie to guide them to the USB. And getting the tease of the backstory at the end of the Dark Web episode hurt so much. I get it, they wanted to build anticipation, but again, the anticipation was already there. But if you do look back on it in retrospect after getting everything in that arc itself, in reality, this episode wasn't so bad. Now I can look back on it without the anticipation for the backstory and
that scene was
appreciate
still
it for
cute
what it
by
really
then.
is, a build-up episode. You know, I actually take it back. The Mario and Newgrounds episode was infinitely worse. The episode could have easily been done without the arc in the background. At the time of this coming out, we've already got 2 Friday Night Funkin' episodes, and having the Newgrounds episode would have been fine on its own. This is yet another episode that feels like it didn't need to exist because, as I said with the Dark Web episode, there is no point to building up more anticipation when the anticipation is already there. This episode was a pain to go through, especially when we saw that the Genesis
it
arc
wasn't that bad, but when we SMG4 Mario had to find that USB, that's why they had to go to that Newgrounds, and especially the USBs in Brazil.
I woke up
You
on
get that
Saturday
point?
and I saw if Mario was in Newgrounds. I get it. SMG 1 and 2.
No, I just wish they have really did it with Mario with Friday Night Funkin' 2 and 1, like the play modes, just like how
just to say that SMG 1
Melody
and 2
was,
are
I
from a
guess.
universe
I wish
with a bunch
they
of
like
Newgrounds
use that
characters.
design
But after that
as the
episode,
Friday
this
Night
is when
Funkin'
the arc picks
style,
up again,
as
and
like
luckily
2D
it
models
does
like
stay
that.
picked up for the rest
You
of the
know,
arc.
the ones back from
other
1 and 2, like
universes, by far
Psycho,
a great
Melody,
episode.
Wimple,
There
like
aren't
other
any
things like
critiques I
that.
can give about it.
Yeah,
The episode
true.
was meant to be
Okay, I gotta stop talking. I mean, I can talk about that later on.
Perfectly. It finally gave closure as to who SMG 1 and 2
I
are,
think
and
I already
finally
did,
satisfied my anticipation that the 10-year anniversary had been set up. Still not getting
Yeah.
Zero's backstory was incredibly irritating. Overall, though, it does
Oh, yeah,
set up a
you
good
know,
mystery
first about
plot to the
whatever
arc.
G1
It made everything
and
feel
2
more
and Spud's
mysterious and made the
backstory,
rest of
yeah.
the arc less predictable. But there was so much hype built up for Zero's
No,
backstory,
yours, I
and the
won't
fact
never
that it
forgive you
wasn't
for this,
delivered
by the
until
way.
months after the
You're
arc's
not a
end
freaking
was
piece of
disappointing.
crap.
But now that we did get it in the Revelations movie,
But
I can
Michael,
finally
who
say that
forced
I'm
Nylas,
satisfied
you
and
did a
I can
good
look
job,
at the
by the way.
Genesis
You did a
arc
good
for
job.
what it is. Partially backstory and partially action, which makes me love this episode much, much more. The main purpose for this episode was to build up the actual plot for the arc itself. Before in the 10-year anniversary special, the only thing that rang of danger was that of a terrifying virus had captured Mario, and it's common knowledge that he's a villain and we must stop him. But now, knowing if Mario dies, the entire universe dies along with him, that is terrifying. It builds
It
so
really
much more
does,
suspense for the rest
but
of the
thank God
arc,
that
and it
didn't
makes it
happen
seem
from
like you
the
just don't
Revelation
know where
too.
the arc is
Thank
going.
God it's the
There was a
universe
major
to
theory
say.
going around at the time of this arc as well, that they were going to use this arc to make a brand new series but without Mario IP. And releasing that restriction on Mario's death
I know
and
what
putting
you're
Mario's
thinking,
life
by
on
the
the
way.
line was an amazing sense of suspense for the rest of the arc. When the anime arc introduced a permadeath feature, it was like, okay, characters can die now, so that makes dark arcs dangerous. But increasing the lore of the permadeath feature so that the entire universe goes out.
You know, that's really true. I mean, you never give a chance of Destiny
At the
that
time,
much,
we
by
didn't
the
know
way.
where the series was going. They've never done an arc like this before. The entire series as a whole can change dramatically at the end of this arc. It tells us that's how far this series can go, and I love this restriction. It makes the rest of the arc feel more dark and more suspenseful than it would be if this restriction wasn't put in place.
So you get that point, you get that point right up here into down here a little bit.
Right after we were introduced to that restriction, Zero's eyes summoned the rest of his body here. And it was at that point that we knew we were done with backstory. We knew we were done with build-up. It was about to get real. It is
this is the part where it goes really downhill
and that
from
was
this
the new
arc.
anticipation this episode was built up, and this
and
new
that means about Axel died.
And unfortunately, with this new form of anticipation, it did.
None of that would have happened because of you,
There were
Niles.
many theories regarding who Zero was at the time. Some people thought that he was SMG0, and there were other theories going around at the time that he's just a simple computer virus. And we all assumed that we would just get that confirmation of Zero's identity when we got his backstory. But for some reason, Mario just says it in one line at the end of the episode. Just casually mentions it. That has got to be the most anticlimactic thing this series has ever done. What was the point in the first place of masking his identity and building
if you all remember my main channel when I made a video about these, like, people's reactions about like that?
Mario even put together that it was
the one from the crossover shows, like, you get that point when I love. You get it.
Technically, yes, it was implied in the flashback when Zero arrived in the Guardian Pod, but at the time of this video's release, we didn't know that Guardians were the only ones that came from Guardian Pods. It feels like there's a scene missing here that actually revealed that Zero was SMG0, but it either got forgotten about or was scrapped. But Mario just casually mentioning that it was SMG0 after all these fan theories and speculation, and all the hype regarding his identity, ruined that initial anticipation. And it was at that point I realized that it's highly likely that we weren't going to get his backstory for a while, especially since the arc was now entering an area of action and the build-up of backstory seemed complete. The next arc episode after this was when Zero finally arrives in this universe, and this was once again another build-up episode. But unlike other build-up episodes the arc had previously established, this build-up episode seemed really necessary. We had no idea where the arc was heading at the time, and all we knew was that Zero was coming to the
happen because of you, Nice, because Axel
this isn't my favorite episode in this arc, it still felt necessary to have it.
Not you, I'm talking about, not you,
Once
I'm talking about Niles, what he done.
Zero possessed him, and keep in mind at the time we didn't know what he planned to use him for, the arc up until this point had no involvement with Axel, and just like that, Axel became the center point of attention. Mario's life was on the line, and now Axel's life was too, and it became very unclear whether or not these characters were going to survive, especially when the popular fan theory that the series may enter a reboot if Mario were to die. And now Axel is being caught in the crossfire, a character that has seen questionable character development, but that's what I like about these
arcs. The only thing what happened, Axel been having a really hard time back from that YouTube arc, from the first
I love how arcs have the ability to do this. The ability to combine several character arcs under one giant lurking story arc is great storytelling. And in my opinion, this arc was a necessity to test Axel and Melanie's relationship. To be that one final push Melanie would have to go through to end their relationship arc. There was a build-up to Melanie's deity powers. Although I won't talk too much about Doomsday, but Mario is okay, overall this episode didn't really progress the arc too much. It just re-established that something is definitely up with Axel, and it was just a question as to how they were going to take this even further than it had now. Most of us wanted to deny that it would get darker, but it just kept going and going. I do want to take the time to talk about SMG3 as well. I already did an entire video essay discussing SMG3's character development over the years, which is why I neglected to talk about it much in this review. I already spoke on his character development in the Genesis arc, but I wanted to point out how amazing the character development is here between them. And it was at this point in the arc that there were multiple plots going on in the show, all under one giant plot. Axel and Melanie's relationship getting tested, and SMG3 going through the most character development that has ever been seen. He was the antagonist of the YouTube arc, and seeing him move from the main antagonist of the series to a protagonist really showed
he still needs to learn his lesson before.
Him and SMG4 holding
hands. I still wish he should freaking apologize,
was a great decision by the writers as well. Them holding hands showcases how much character development SMG3 has been through this arc. It was definitely a purposeful decision by the writers. SMG3 hated SMG4, so them forcing to hold hands to manipulate meme energy must have been really hard for him to overcome. And by the end of the arc, he comes to understand that SMG4 really isn't that bad. This is perfect writing, and if you really just take a step back and look at this arc as a whole, you really just see how much plot is going on all at once. And of course, one of the highlights of the arc was Axel's transformation. And again, just when you thought it couldn't get darker, it ends up getting darker.
Yeah, it really did. It really did.
That was a pure moment of just raw shock.
You know, I will feel sorry for Axel. We all did. I feel sorry for Axel when he didn't deserve what he had to go through, by the way. But thanks to freaking Silver, which means Niles, had to do anything the best he could do until he did this like this.
On SMG4. This transformation just symbolizes how dark this arc was willing to get, how far they were going to take the story, only for them to end it in War of the Fat Italians 2021. It was around this time that on Twitter that WotF 2021 was announced. Although the trailer and official announcement wouldn't come until after the next episode, this announcement was such a letdown. I remember thinking to myself,
is WotF 2022 is going to be like the last 2 years, or it's going to be a little different? I don't know.
Lighter-hearted arcs. It worked in the Waluigi and YouTube arc because both of those arcs weren't really that dark. But this arc was the darkest arc. Even
it really did. I mean, let's have a fun fact about this. This is the most darkest WotF ever. That was my fact.
Dark thing that was built up past that point. But the majority of the last video was nothing but fun challenges. Fun, lighthearted challenges. And it just interrupted the story completely. It just felt like there was so much build-up to the darkest arc ever. And then it's just, hold up. We have to get through this fun, lighthearted challenges first that has a bunch of humor to it and nothing dark. It just breaks everything that the arc had previously set up. And as these last couple of arc episodes were rolling out and you begin wondering how this arc is going to end, you get reminded that, oh, it's just going to end in WotF. And at this point, we all know how WotF is going to end. We've been through arc-related WotFs 2 other times at this point. They started off arc-related, they do challenges, they do a rap battle, and then they end the arc. It became
that makes sense.
And even looking at this year's WotF, it just seems that they could have done the arc's ending without WotF at all. Axel could have been unalived without there needing to be a bunch of challenges to go along with it. But I'm definitely making it out more of a problem than it actually was. The last few episodes of the arc were still tremendously great. I'm personally a fan of the fact that by the end of this arc, we got to see inside of every single Guardian pod.
I mean, the WotF 2021 wasn't that bad, but this was the most darkest.
Especially after building up the hype regarding the Guardian pods. Zero finally getting his hands on Mario was definitely a suspenseful moment that lasted throughout the rest of this arc. In fact, Mario didn't even speak in the final piece. And the way the characters took Mario being captured so seriously was such good writing. And since, as I said before, that Glitch is not scared to unalive its characters, it really felt that Mario could die at any moment. Just look at how Luigi is presented in this arc. While not being too big of a feature in this arc, the way Luigi was presented was also really great. Luigi's emotions here showcases how much Luigi really loves his brother. Well, yes, Mario is SMG4's best friend.
That's really
Luigi
true.
Is his brother,
I mean, he
and
loves
seeing
his
them
brother.
both scream Mario in the final
But he
piece
can do
showcases
stupid
that brotherly
sometimes,
love perfectly. In fact, this is brotherly love that the Waluigi arc built up all those years ago. When Luigi was presumed unalive by lava, it was Mario screaming Luigi's name. And now the tables have turned, and now that Mario's life is in danger, it's Luigi screaming Mario's name. It's moments like this that refine the fact that even though Mario is dumb and even though Luigi puts up with Mario's shenanigans every day, they still love each other, and if one of them goes, the other would be severely devastated. As for Axel and Melanie's relationship, this was the first time I actually cried watching SMG4. And if the writers can actively make me cry and feel connection to these characters, they're doing a great job. It's one thing to affect another person emotionally by making them laugh, but having their audience connect with characters and making the audience actually cry from the situation those characters are going through, I'd say that the writers reached their goal. Going into WotF 2021, we really didn't know how the arc was going to end. We knew that the arc was in fact going to end somehow, but we didn't know who was going to fall and who was going to receive heaps of development. Even though I don't like how the arc ended with WotF 2021, you have to give credit where credit is due. The rap battle is a banger. This is by far the best rap battle
but I
ever
still credit to those voice actors too. Especially Lazy, especially especially James, Luke, Kevin.
It makes it seem
and
like
the one who sings Mario Luigi's voice, and
two lives are on the line here, and if one of them dies, then the entire universe dies along with him, and one is under control, and the other has a shadow copy of himself. It makes it seem like how are they even going to get out of this one? But when Mario eventually breaks free from Zero and
I can't forget Woofy Chew's singing that too.
We knew it was time to end this once and for all.
Yeah, I still credit that whole
down so Melanie could deliver
everything
the final blow,
of the singing was quick to that.
A person who was once the main antagonist of the series helping deliver the final blow against the biggest villain the series has ever seen, is a good summary of how far this arc has come since its initial start, how far these characters have gone ever since their introduction, and Axel being unalived by Melanie was a beautiful wrap-up to everything. This was a satisfying end to Axel's character arc and a satisfying start to Melanie's. Even if Axel was one of my favorite characters, and it does suck to see him go, this was a necessary sacrifice to not just end the story arc, but put an end to Axel's character arc entirely. And allowing his character arc to bring new life to Melanie was a beautiful way to push the series forward. And with that, thank you all for watching, and check out my SMG4 Mario is Smart Theory.
I really miss Axel. Even thought that after this arc, it really sad how this was going through. But I mean, this arc was alright too, by the way. But it was really down. Like it really was so down, pretty bad Dark Hill, to be honest. But I tell you this, I hope the next arc won't be too much really Dark Hill. Like, we already have an early arc already. What's next? Another new arc later in a dang year? Oh, next year? Oh, we'll be back for Warfare 2022 for that? Ha! I don't know. But I'm just going to have to say, I give them credit for what they do every time. Every year when they make these episodes, I give them credit. And I really enjoy them every single bit, but not every fan of SMG4 people doesn't like all the other episodes. But I respect their opinions, but I just don't want to talk about it, so that's still true. But I still credit to those voice actors who've been making this year ever since, like Lizzie Freeman, like Richard Smith, Jessica Feigl, Wilbur, and others voice actors. So does James, Luke, and Kevin. But the girl who voiced Theo is from SMG2's voice as well. I give her credit too. And the one from SMG1's voice, I give him credit too. Forgot his name, but I still credit for him. And the Wolfie Chu who voiced Mary, I give her credit, and everyone else at the voice actors, as he loves like a psycho, I give them all credits for what they've been going through every year. But I can't wait to see 1 year of Psycho getting a series, 1 year of any other type of things that is going to happen later on the year. But maybe there could be a twist. But who knows? Because I really would love to see more of the arcs. But even for, I don't want them to be really dark. But I know the Janus arc was. But the Revelation arc wasn't that bad. It wasn't really dark. But it was a bit dark from the Betray episode from it, Sally. But the rest of the episodes were good. But still, I'm just saying, if we ever have another next arc, let's prepare if it happens, okay? We're going to prepare. I mean, I'm not going to hate on it, but, we're going to prepare everything we need to go through, okay? Every year, we got to deal with, okay? We got to do this every year for you all. I got to do this for you guys. I got to do it. Battlefields got to do with it. Come on. That's what I have to do sometimes. You get that point, I get the point. You get the point, I get your point, okay? All right. That's what I want to say. So what is your thoughts about the Janus arc? I know it was really sad after what happened to Axel, but it's what it is. But anyways, if you have any type of thoughts about this arc, make sure to leave your comments below, subscribe, and share. Still miss you, Axel.